Hi guys and welcome back. This is City Skylines 2, San Francisco, the alternative version. As always, I'm your host and creator Legio, and we are on to episode 13, which is going to be a pretty big episode, city-defining episode actually. Today we'll be building the public transit system, which I'm affectionately yet childishly calling the F.A.R.T, which stands for the Francisco Area Rapid Transit. I base it off of the BART. And BART is trademarked, so I can't use that name. So instead we're just going to call it the F.A.R.T. Sue me, it's a video game, I can have fun with it. But yeah, going to be a pretty big episode today. We are going to include a pretty extensive subway network that I've kind of have an idea what it's going to look like since the beginning of this. Put a little image up here in the top left. That's just a general guideline for me to follow. It'll probably change as we build. Then we're also going to put a tram in, because what would the city... It can't be San Francisco without trams. So we're going to have a tram line coming in. Just one for right now I think will do, but we'll see how it goes. And we're also going to have buses towards the end of the episode. I'm a little curious how that goes, because in Skylines 1 I was terrible at making bus routes. And it seems like it's a little different here in Skylines 2. So that may be an adventure. The other thing we're going to probably be doing this episode is we're going to be, in my mind, connecting the city, so to speak. So this no man's land out here is going to start getting filled up. And to do that, I actually went and got something to help me with that. So I want to address an elephant in the room before I start building. I downloaded the Infinite Demand mod, and it looks like it's working from this screen because all the sliders are full right here. But if you actually click into the city information tab, you'll see that the commercial demand is 0, and those aren't building. And people, while the buildings will build, people don't move in. So a little bit of tinkering and a whole bunch of crying and cussing at the game and all the other negative emotions I could express towards my computer. I went and got the Plop the Growables mod, which has been up there for a while. I just didn't realize it, I guess, and that more or less seems to help fix the problem. I play tested it a little bit off screen, so it looks like it more or less works when I use that mod. So a little tedious, but it looks like I'm gonna have to hand place a whole bunch of stuff right now. I'll still use zoning here and there to speed up my progress, but for the most part it looks like I'm back to the olden days of City Skylines 1 where I would hand plop everything, which isn't a big deal. It's just time consuming, and I know you guys don't have all the time in the world to sit here and watch a mediocre YouTuber place buildings all day. But, you know, it is what it is. More or less, I'm building to please myself, and you guys are just along for the ride. So anyways, with all that said, let's go ahead and jump into the build, because I'm sure you guys didn't come here to listen to me talk. You came in here to watch me mess this city up as bad as I can. Alrighty guys, so we start off our work by first clearing out this entire area to make room for everything that we're about to build. And if I'm being honest, I wasn't exactly in love with the way the roads and everything was in this area to begin with. It really felt awkward and everything felt out of place. And you'll see later, I had to rework it a few times. I kept trying to force my version of a parkway into the area, and it just came out looking weird and definitely out of place. So I had to scrap that idea. It's an awkward area to work with because things are at like an angle and it's on the waterfront, and I kind of box myself in with that main road up there and then the highways up there. It's just kind of an awkward area to work in my opinion. But here you're going to see me start working on this little parkway. That's what I'm calling it. And these parkways, they act more like pseudo highways in my mind, and there's something I like putting in my cities. I've seen them in a couple of cities where they act as a quick alternative to the actual highway for people. And what I do is I typically take standard one-way roads and I treat them like a small-scale highway, just with intersections. And it's a big people mover. That's what I use it for. I don't really zone on those. I don't put buildings on those. They do act as like little makeshift highways. And the one where I live, which is in the St. Louis area, it's Forest Park Parkway. It kind of acts like a major shortcut from the edge of the city proper to 170, which is a major highway for the surrounding area. But I end up changing all that stuff later on because it just doesn't look right. So it'll get moved. Later on, it'll get moved. But now, we begin the reason that everyone clicked on the video to begin with, and I start by first building out the subway system. And this is how I'll normally build out my transit systems. I'm sure buses and trams most likely come first in cities, but it's just easier for me to build the subway system and model everything else off of that. And it makes sense because even if you have a bus network prior to a newly built subway, I imagine you're going to tweak the buses anyways to accommodate the subway. So that was my mentality of, you know, the buses were probably there, but they got tweaked to fit the subway system when it came in. But I started by placing our station out here next to the waterfront and right off of our cargo hub area. And I've had the idea for this placement for a while because I think it ties pretty nicely with the cargo hub area. I feel it gives a smoother transition from our industrial vibe into the city vibe. And that can sometimes be difficult to do, especially in city skylines. Sometimes it's just hard to work everything into the fabric of the city because sometimes the assets it doesn't look right for one reason or another. But I think having transport right on the urban edge into the industrial edge, I think that's always a good, smooth transition. And speaking of transitions, we start to transition our rails to underground. And I like the way this turned out for the most part. It's still kind of difficult to work with any terrain, and for some reason, when you go underground with any network in this game, it still looks weird, at least in my opinion. It doesn't make a smooth transition. So I do the best I can with it, and I come back later and I detail everything around it. Because I slope everything down towards that second road, thinking, oh, it'll be a nice gentle little slope for the trains to go underneath that road, but when the rails get near the road, they want to connect or they want to do weird things to the train, so I have to settle for setting them back a little bit like that. And it's less gentle slope down and more like a roller coaster ride, in my opinion. But you can't tell from the aerial view. Like if you're riding those trains, it's probably one hell of a ride. And then what I do is I kind of start detailing this area up using the alleyways, putting keys on them, and using the Plop the Growables to put some warehouses, and then I just kind of bushify everything. And I think this helps the area. It helps hide some of the ugliness of the area, because like looking at it, to me this is an extremely ugly area. So I was just like, I gotta do something to touch this up, and I come up with an okay method of touching it up and making it look better, but it could have been a whole lot better in my opinion. So once we get the subway station all detailed out and looking better than a dog turd, we start working on our actual subway lines. And I'm going to go ahead and leave the line guide that I displayed earlier up as an overlay so you can kind of have a better idea of what I'm doing here. Because in my opinion, it's really hard to follow what's going on screen when people are building transit systems in a fast play. It's just so rapid and so quickly moving that I just wanted to portray what I'm doing here just a little bit better. And I also want to let you know, it's a very simple guide I made, and I made it using Microsoft Paint in like 45 seconds. So don't destroy my artistic ability, of which I have none, and don't destroy Microsoft Paint. It comes in clutch. Just embrace the mediocrity. But the main idea is I wanted my residents to be able to get on a train and be able to get to any point of the city with essentially just one transfer. And I'd say I more or less accomplished that. For example, say you're way up in the northern corner of the city, you can get on either the green or the maroon line, and then you can connect to the blue or orange line and it'll take you to, say, the cargo hub area, where most people are going to be working anyways. Or if you want to get to the ferry from the middle of the city, you could just take that red line there and connect to the orange line. I'm no subway engineer, if that's even a thing, but I think it's pretty simple, and if you were to visit this city, you'd easily figure it out. Now, one of the methods I use is I will draw out all the subway lines, and then I'll come back later and place the stations. I'll typically measure out my station's distance between 1 and 1.5 kilometers in-game, but I kind of eyeballed some of these stations into areas I think that would have been strategic or high traffic. I've not found an official rule for how far stations had to be away from each other. I googled it, and it seems each city has their own idea of how far apart, but I think the general consensus is about a mile or so in the US. So, eyeballing that. But with this being a game, I think we can space them a little further because I just didn't want the trains to pile up on each other. Now, while I was recording this, a big announcement for City Skylines 2 came out. That being the new Beachfront Properties DLC, which is confirmed for the 25th. So yay for that. That's going to be fun. My patience might actually be rewarded. So if you live under a rock in the Skylines community and didn't see, there's a new DLC that's bringing some new features and assets to the game, which is cool. But the big thing I was seeing is there's now a map and an asset editor. And it looks like those features will more or less be built right into the game for a more seamless transition than what we had previously, which I think will be a good thing. I saw the feature of quote-unquote playsets, which I imagine you can have set up for either different mod loadouts or different city assets. So that feature should be pretty nice at keeping things a little decluttered, because in City Skylines 1 I had a huge problem of keeping my collections organized because I'd subscribe to everything and then just lose track. I can't be the only one who did that. So I'm pretty excited about that feature. I already watched a little bit of game footage of them showing those features off, and it looks pretty promising, at least from my point of view. And I'm sure there's going to be bugs, but hey, progress is progress. I'm going to take it. Also, what I was pretty excited about, and it is confirmed, the Move It mod, which I've been begging for, will be there, and it looks just like it kind of did in the olden days. I did see, I forget the YouTuber who was playing around with it, but I did see them actually play with it in-game. It looked just like the mod from Skylines 1, so I'm pretty stoked about that. And I think once they launch the asset creator and the community does its thing, this game is going to improve by leaps and bounds. I'm not going to cover too much more because there's other YouTubers who have really covered the topic a lot better than I can. So just let me know what you expect down below. Give me your thoughts and opinions, and I'll comment back with my opinions. But for the record, my opinion is it's a good thing, and it's about damn time we got this. I still am a firm believer of it should have been there at launch, but I guess it's better late than never, right? Anyways, the next thing on my notes here is to get to some YouTube comment shoutouts. And I only have 2 for today. The first one is one I did acknowledge in a previous episode, but I forgot to give it screen time because I'm dumb like that. I'm very smooth-brained. There's very few wrinkles up there. It's from Mr. or Mrs. Moshe Cohen, who helped me with the pronunciation of a word in the episode. It's from the Golden Gate Park episode. It's where I place what I term the Asian Culture Center. It is apparently pronounced Gen-sa. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. And he says it means gold in Chinese. So thank you. I'm not one to argue with you. I'm going to take your word for it. I do try to pronounce everything to the best of my abilities, but again, my brain don't work too good. So then the next one we have is from Somber Killer again, starting to become a #1 fan there, so I appreciate it. They say things are starting to look good, and I totally agree. I think things are starting to shape up. You're going to see in this episode things really take shape. I don't know what kind of shape they take, but I think it's a good shape. So I think you're going to enjoy this episode, Mr. or Mrs. Killer. So anyways, thank you guys for the comments, and if you want your comment shown, you actually have to comment, so do that down below. I'm still small enough that I'll respond to you, I promise. So with our comments given the proper shoutouts, I say it's time we move on to today's history lesson. And it's been a little bit since I've done one of these, so please be forgiving. It might be a little rough, but I'm going to go ahead and give it the old college try. So today's topic isn't what I'd say very historically dense, but I would say it's a fairly interesting topic, especially for City Skylines players, I'd imagine. So today we will be discussing the history of public transit in the United States. Now, one thing I want to make very clear is public transit was a thing before the US even existed, which I know is kind of crazy to imagine anything existing before the US, but apparently it did happen. I've read enough history books to prove it to me. And there's evidence of people using various forms of public transit throughout history, such as stagecoaches and ferries. And this dates all the way back to ancient Egypt. There's evidence of it being used in ancient Greece, and canals and boats being used in China as various forms of public transit throughout human history. So it's not a new concept, but it definitely evolved over the course of human history. The first modern form of public transportation as we would know it today was developed in Paris by a mathematician named Blaise Pascal. And he called it, and please forgive my pronunciation here, please correct me in the comments down below. Again, the smooth brain is about to come out. But he called it the Carrosse à cinq soles. Don't even know how close I got to pronouncing that. I do not speak a lick of French. But he developed this system, and it had stagecoaches that were set to predestined routes for preset times. So pretty similar to how our public transit works today. Now, he set this up back in 1662, and it gave society a glimpse of what public transit could do. So then you fast forward to the 1830s in America, where many major cities adopted similar horse-drawn omnibus ideas. New York City, Boston, Philadelphia, and Baltimore all implemented their own versions of the transit system. And these systems became a hit with the public, with New York City alone seeing over 7 million riders in 1853. Eventually, horsepower gave way to steam power, but one thing to know about these early steam-powered trains is the public considered them a nuisance at first, and this was due to the minor inconveniences of it producing a lot of ash in the atmosphere, excessive noise coming from the train, and other associated dangers, such as, explosions on the train that would send debris and shrapnel hurtling towards pedestrians. So, minor inconveniences. Stuff that the public just got all uppity about. But improvements were made to the train and the tracks alike, such as using structures to elevate the trains above the roadways. And this had the benefit of easing the congestion of the roadway and ensuring the right-of-way of the train. And this allowed for a more rapid transit of the train. It also had the added benefit of increasing safety for motorists and pedestrians alike on the road below. In New York, they had an elevated train that's also known as the L. This proved to be a major success by carrying almost 500,000 riders a day, which is a pretty good number. And improvements were made over time, and eventually a central power station would allow for electrical currents to be carried along wires that were attached to the track, and these wires would power the trains. This made the trains much safer, quieter, and it also reduced pollution. So overall, a pretty good idea, I'd say. And we know this new means of transportation as cable cars. And in 1873, San Francisco, how about that, built their iconic cable car system and began operation by first rolling down Clay Street. The cable cars were a huge hit in the city due to its ability to overcome the hilly terrain in a safe and inexpensive method. And other American cities would soon follow suit, and many sported their own cable car systems. Now, something to keep in mind with early public transit is that it was hardly public. These systems were usually privatized and owned by various companies that had little government oversight early on, and they had poor interconnectedness, if that's a word. They didn't interact with each other very well. But this all began to change in 1890 when Boston developed the Boston Transit Commission, which oversaw the development of North America's first true subway in 1897. Public transit would take a hit in the 1910s, though, with the arrival of a little something known as the automobile, and many Americans opted to drive rather than ride. This would last into modern day. There would be ebbs and flows with ridership throughout history, such as a surge during World War II with the peak of 23.4 billion riders in 1946. That was largely due to automakers suspending civilian production for the war effort. This boom, however, would not last, as post-war saw a major decline in public riders in total. All wasn't lost, however, because in the 1970s there was a renewed public interest in public transit, and this interest saw the building or expanding of multiple systems such as Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Miami, Baltimore, and of course San Francisco, which brings us to our system. We base it off of the BART, as I told you in the beginning of the episode, but BART is trademarked, so we have F.A.R.T. But let's talk about the BART for a second. The BART story began back in the 1940s when the Bay Area residents were looking for a means to solve the overcrowding and the traffic congestion issues in the area. So in 1951, the San Francisco Bay Area Rapid Transit Commission was formed, and they were tasked with implementing a system to service the whole Bay Area. And on June 19, 1964, construction began on the system, and the last spike was placed in 1971. The total cost for the system was $1.5 billion in 1976, and adjusted for inflation, that's approximately $11.1 billion today. So it costs a lot, but yeah, it seems to be worth it because San Francisco seems pretty proud of their public transit. But yeah, that's pretty much the history lesson for the day. Hopefully I didn't bore you guys to sleep, but I thought it was pretty interesting. I figured someone out there would also find it interesting. And if you want to learn more, check out the links down below because I did condense a lot of this information for your viewing pleasure. But anyways, I want to pivot and address something you guys have probably noticed. I was gone for a while, about a month, and I just wanted to address that. I don't want to get too in depth with everything that was going on, but I had a pretty big tragedy that occurred in my life, and it just consumed a lot of my time. And when I did have time to play the game or do any editing, my mind just wasn't with it. So I took a break to get myself right and come back when I was doing better. And I am doing a little better now. And I just wanted to get back to my old routine, so here I am. I didn't want to take that much time off. It was never intended, but it was definitely needed. And I'll probably get back to putting these videos out at a decent pace, especially with the mods and assets going live soon. So do expect more episodes to come. I'll just end this little segment by saying, please take care of yourself, guys. Get the help when and if you need it. Trust me, you're stronger for reaching out than trying to hold it all in. And I don't know who needs to hear it, but even if you feel like no one cares, your old pal Legio cares, so go get the help from me. Because I do appreciate each and every one of you, and I do wish each of you the best of luck. Alright, so the last thing I want to discuss before we start talking about what I'm actually doing on screen, because I know some Eagle Eye fan is going to catch it and they're going to call me on it in the comments, so I just want to get out ahead of the curve. If you go through and look through the San Francisco series, you'll notice that I renamed my past episodes. And what that basically came from is it was an experiment I was doing. Because typically how I name my episodes is I try to make them as blunt and straightforward as I can. When you open the episode, that is what I'm building, more or less. And the YouTube algorithm didn't seem to like the way I was doing it. So I did an experiment and I kind of copied what other City Skylines YouTubers were doing, and the formula worked. I noticed a substantial increase of viewers like as soon as I did it. So I'll probably keep doing it because viewers are nice. It's what I mean, it's ultimately what we all want on YouTube, is as many viewers as you can get. It's not my ultimate goal of being a professional YouTuber. That's never been my goal. This has always been a hobby. It always will just be a small hobby I do on the side. I'd like to get thousands of subscribers, but it's really not make or break for me. If I get even a couple more, I'm happy. I'm pretty happy with about 200 I have now, but you know, there's always room for growth. So I won't reject you if you want to join, but if you don't want to join, that's also fine. I just appreciate you watching 30 seconds of the video. But anyways, let's finally talk about what we are doing on screen. And basically what we did is I plopped down an entire neighborhood. I was initially hesitant to use Plop the Growables off the Thunderstore because I saw one YouTuber using it and it didn't work the way they intended, so it made me really nervous to use it. But then I saw another use it and everything seemed to work for them. So I guess I can attribute it to user error. And I can't hate on anybody for having user error because I think the infinite demand mod that I discussed in this episode a little earlier, that I think is all user error. I think I just broke the mod myself by not paying any attention to how a city is supposed to organically grow. But that's not how I play these games. These games are the ultimate sandbox to me. I don't want to follow the rules. That is one of the major reasons I'm so excited for official mod support and asset creator finally coming to Skylines 2 in just a couple days now. So really excited for that. So going forward with the city, I will probably continue to use Plop the Growables, or whatever version we get of it. And that's because I like having the ultimate control and building exactly what I want to build. The plus side to zoning is it builds quickly and it's a time saver, but sometimes it just puts stuff I don't want there. When I'm doing row houses, I don't want a 2-cell deep row house next to a 6-cell deep row house. It looks weird to me. I don't like it. So I just like having the control. It's how I played City Skylines 1 anyways. All the cities I built off screen were all hand placed. The one city, Mohegan, I built on screen, as terrible as that was, I did a lot of hand plopping in that as well. So I'm used to it. It's not a problem for me to do it. I enjoy it. In fact, I prefer it when the YouTubers I watch hand plop everything. Like, I'm going back and watching Jeremy Thunder. He's building a Japanese series, which I suggest you check out because it's highly detailed. But he hand does everything, procedure objects and all that, and that's how I like to build as well. So that's probably the second time I brought him up in my videos. So Jeremy, if you see my videos, please be my friend. I'm a very big fan of your craft. But what we're also doing now is we're building out all these districts, as you can see. What I want you guys to do in the comments below is I want you to give me names for these districts. I believe there's 5 off the top of my head. So I'd like some names for those districts. If you don't come up with the names, I can always come up with the names later. I'll probably use the San Francisco neighborhood map as inspiration. And now we are beginning our bus lines. I am terrible at doing bus lines. I don't know why. I struggled with it in City Skylines 1. I struggle with it here. So please be kind and generous and forgiving with how badly I messed this up. But I did actually have a plan. It probably just doesn't look like it. What I typically did is I would put my bus lines through the districts and try to connect 2 districts to each other. And then I'd have them be as close to a subway line or a train station as I could, just so that you could get on the bus, hop off, and get on another public transit. I also really like to intersect my bus lines. I think that actually happens in reality. So I like to have that interconnectability within the city. I think it makes transit a lot easier and a lot smoother. It's much more realistic. I also, when I'm placing these bus stops, I try to ensure a couple things. One, that they're on main roads near main areas like City Hall. Or if they're going to be on side roads, they're near the main road intersection of that side road, if it makes sense. That way they can easily walk to wherever they need to get to. And I don't know how many of you guys do this. I'll typically I'll have 2 lines running parallel to each other. I don't know if that's something that happens in real life, but it makes sense to me. So I do that a lot with my bus routes. The problem is it eats up a lot of the buses themselves. So off screen, I kind of adjust the number of buses each line gets, because one bus line ends up getting like 14, 15 buses, and it did not need that many buses. For the city this size, it could probably be fine with just 6. It's not like we need a million buses. So yeah, as this fast play is winding up, you're going to start seeing a lot of those buildings that I had originally zoned have now despawned, and it all happened right as I took off the Infinite Demand mod, which it's annoying, but it's something I can live with for the time being. It's not going to ruin anything for me because I can just go in and hand place all those things later on. So not a big deal. It's just tedious, busy work, but I mean, I've got this game for years to come, so it's not that major of a deal. And speaking of the years to come, I'd like to actually hear from you guys and your opinions on the DLCs that are going to come for this game. So we got our first DLC coming in, the beachfront properties, which I have mixed opinions on. My opinion is you can keep all of it except for the introduction of the asset creator and the map creator. Because my opinion, with the editors opened up and us getting the mods, I don't need you to give me specific beachfront property zoning, Because what we're going to do is someone on the workshop's going to make a beach house, and I'm just going to move it and put it over there anyways. Unless I'm missing something with the mechanic, there may be a mechanic where you can actually zone along the water or something, but I think you're still going to need a network to go near it to like get trash and power and crime and everything serviced. So I'm not really sure how that mechanic's going to work. I didn't watch too much at this time of how that mechanic is going to work. I don't like to watch and spoil too much on video games or DLCs. I am a big fan of, I like to be surprised, so I avoid a lot of spoilers for games and movies. I'll avoid every commercial I possibly can for things, just so I can thoroughly enjoy it when it first comes out. That's how I operate. But anyways, yeah, leave discussion down below what you guys think of the upcoming DLC and what you'd like to see in future DLCs, because I have opinions and I'd like to discuss those opinions with you. And the only way to discuss them with me is in the YouTube comments, because I don't really do whatever Twitter is now, and I don't really do Discord. I just don't have time for it. Like I said, side hobbies. But yeah, let's get a discussion down below if you guys are interested. Otherwise, the episode's about to wrap up. If you enjoyed everything you've seen, I'll say it once and I'll say it again. Do the typical YouTube stuff down below. And I will see you guys in the live play that's coming up in about 1, maybe 2 minutes. Alrighty guys, so we're back to a live play, and we're just kind of hanging out what might be my new favorite spot in the city. Actually, there's no might be about it. This is my new favorite spot in the city. I really like how this little Metro Plaza thing turned out. We got the tall buildings that I think look really good, especially have like a San Francisco vibe to them. So those assets look really good. And then we got some surface network, or we got some surfaces down that I think look really good. We got the mulch over here, trees, props, you name it, we got it. So I think this is looking pretty good. I really like the way this area turned out. We got a park over here. So overall, I think this might be my favorite spot in the city. I mean, just look at that. That looks great right there. So really happy with the way that turned out. And that was all Plop the Growables. So that was all done by me. And then over here we have our bus depot. I like the way this turned out too. This is a good looking asset. You know, this area just looks pretty good. We got some more fill-in work to do because the infinite demand mod isn't working properly, so a lot of stuff is broken, but I can fill it in as we go. I'm not too worried about that. But overall, we have our public transit system set in place, or at least the beginnings of it. So we have F.A.R.T up and running, and we'll do a quick overview of that. So we'll go in here. We have our bus lines basically covering the entire city. Too complicated to really go through, but we'll start with the tram because it's the easiest. So we have our tram line that basically comes from here up by the park, runs all the way down to Pioneer Park in the pier area, does a loop and goes back. So that's pretty simple and straightforward. But then we have our subway lines, and they cover the entire city. They're more complicated than the original San Francisco. But basically we have a line that runs out to this industrial area, down into Mission Bay, over to the ferry line, and then up into the other spots of the city. So we got pretty good coverage, I believe. I'm pretty happy with the way all that turned out, and it looks for the most part like people are using all the lines, especially this green line for right now. Looks like they're using that pretty well. I think that usage number is going to go up. Yellow line's going to increase as the city fills in, because right now we're losing population due to me mismanaging mods, but it'll come back, I promise. We just got to meet the job market is where it's really hurting, because they need jobs, cost of living, you know, the same things people always fight in this game. So we'll get to fixing that in the next episode, but for right now, the last thing I want to do is we have some new districts. So total, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5 new districts. And what I'd like to do is, if you guys are interested in naming those for me, that'd be great. If not, I can name them. I'll probably just use the San Francisco neighborhood map as inspiration. But essentially, guys, that's all I had for this episode. I appreciate you sticking with me to the end. I know it's been a little bumpy, but I think we're making pretty good progress and we're figuring stuff out. If you enjoy what you see here, you know what to do down below. And you guys have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one.